mic over to David to start us off.
Awesome, thank you. All right, this is the last part of the evening, so of the day, so I want to kind of make sure that we're back in here. So this is the closing afternoon plenary. So let me say that again. Are you ready for the closing afternoon plenary? Let's try that one more time. Are you ready for the closing afternoon plenary? All right, now we can get started. Thank you. So, the learning outcomes for this session, I'm going to go over quickly for everyone. What are we trying to get out of here? The bottom line is, we want to make sure that our kids, our students, the people that we are serving, are able to afford the cost of college. That's what we're talking about. And we want to figure out where are we at now, and what can we do to make sure that that is able to be a reality for our students and the people that we serve. And we want to make sure that we can have some actionable things that we can do together so that by the end of this, we can take one more step to make that vision a reality. The second thing I wanted to share was the panelists we have here are pretty incredible. And you may or may not know this, but the Northern California College Promise Coalition has a 3-year policy plan. And the elements of that policy plan, which I'll highlight in a moment, are actually all addressed in some way via this panel. Specifically, it's about protecting student data, which is more important now than it has ever been. 2, safeguarding financial resources and strengthening them. Amplifying wealth building programs. Do we have Amanda Feinstein in the room over there? All right, wealth building. All right, good. And ensuring racial and gender equity. Yes, I said it, racial and gender equity. So these are the priorities that we have, and all of these people here are going to tell us how we can actually make that happen. The last thing I'll say in introducing myself is, a couple of decades ago, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to creatively say, I was a teacher in Compton. And I remember asking my kids, I was a 2nd grade teacher in Compton, a bunch elementary school. I apologize for what I was wearing here. My jeans were a little messed up. But the bottom line is, I asked them, I said, do you think you want to go to college? And the number one thing they said to me was, does anyone have a guess? I can't afford to go to college. So I remember we actually did a workshop then with Compton Community College and UC and Cal State to say, actually, you can. And so as we go forward, that is the number one thing that many of our students face, and it is our responsibility to debunk it, as well as to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that's a reality. With that, I want to introduce this amazing panel here. So ladies and gentlemen, and if we had music right now, I would do drum rolls or whatever like that, and there we go. From Cal Kids. The Cal Kids Initiatives with ScholarShare, the investment board who has partnered with NCCPC and the California CSA Coalition since 2022, the manager of Cal Kids Initiatives, Noah Lightman. I had the pleasure of connecting with Noah at a county event like 3 times and to try to make sure that we can make this a reality. And I'm so glad that you're still here, Noah, to drive this home. And we also have the Director of Program and Strategy with the College Futures Foundation, who has supported NCCPC since 2023, as well as several NCCPC members. It is Rebecca Ruan O'Shaughnessy. Let's give it up. And from San Jose City College, the Dean of Academic Success and Student Equity, the NCCPC Steering Committee member, and campus partner since 2023. And let me tell you, as someone who helped start campus partnerships, we don't have that many, so this is great. I love it. Let's give it up for Dr. Renee Alvarez. And finally, I don't want to say the best for last because all of these people are here, but the special place that I have in my heart is for students. And so we are modeling that with NCCPC because that's what we're all about. That's why we exist. So I want to congratulate a panelist that is here that is a recent PhD graduate, the Basic Needs Coordinator at Santa Clara University, appointed to the California Cradle to Career Data System Community Engagement Advisory Board member and a Student Basic Needs Coalition Fellow. Give it up for Alexis Takagi. Congratulations, Alexis. All right, so for this plenary, I'm going to ask our panelists a set of questions. There's only going to be 3 or 4, so be ready. You may have some questions too. We encourage you all to grab your notebooks, your notepads on your tables, and write down questions as they come up. And no NCCPC event would ever be complete without the branded notebooks that Mayor and team have put out, so let's use them. And please raise your hand, and a member of our team can pick up your questions, as this will be how we approach the Q&A session. So take 30 seconds right now and think, is there any question I want to ask these people? Take a moment to write. If you don't want to write, you don't have to. And then in the next period of time, just raise your hand at some point, and we will collect those and go. So feel free to raise your hand anytime in the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 minutes. So question number 1. All right, this is a tough one here. Fastball, right down the middle. Can you talk about the costs of college and the state of college affordability in California from your perspective? I'm going to give on the clock 3 minutes to each panelist. Talk about the cost of college and the state of affordability. Let's start out with our student graduate extraordinaire, Alexis. Oh, you do? Never mind. Sorry.
They still need the mic to be loud.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, my name is Alexis Chikagi. Really excited to be here with you all. I've recently graduated. I went to Santa Clara University for my undergrad. I got my doctorate in June, so we're just very new. But I'm a first generation community college student at heart, like that's me. And so cost of college is really expensive. I'm the basic needs coordinator at Santa Clara University, and so I'm the inaugural basic needs coordinator. So building those supports for that student has been a challenge because cost of attendance goes so much more beyond tuition and textbooks. We have health insurance, we have transportation needs, we have textbooks, school supplies, just technology. Housing is a major one, especially in Silicon Valley, and so students are really struggling to attend. It's not that they don't want to, they have the grit, they want to show up and be present, but it's really hard when they're thinking about where their next meal is going to come from, or if their laptop breaks down and they're doing their midterm on their phone. And so I think that these are things that we really need to be mindful of when, advancing policy, advancing practices with students, is that it really needs to be wraparound services for these students to then be retained by these institutions and actually thrive in higher education. In California, I've seen really great investments in financial aid, but I think we could be doing more, again, to really make sure students feel supported so they don't have to work 3 to 4 jobs. The California Student Aid Commission did a report back in 2023 on the cost of living and basic needs, and we see that students are working 20 plus hours just to be able to make ends meet, and still then they can't even, they're choosing between textbooks and food. And so these are really decisions that students are having to make. And so I really think that students are looking for trusted messengers of financial aid, and I think the California Student Aid Commission has done a great job in that, but I think a lot of these students are navigating this by themselves. And so I think if we can build out more systems, more bridges of support for students, they can be really informed about their decision and really thrive in higher education instead of just barely surviving.
Thank you for having me. Noah Lightman with the Scholarshare Investment Board, and again, thank you to Mur and the entire team for putting on this great event. In answering this question from our perspective at the Scholarshare Investment Board, we already know college is expensive. That's why we're all here. But the Scholarshare Investment Board was created as a state agency in the 90s to help families save for college through the state's 529 College Savings Plan, which is a tax advantage investment vehicle designed specifically for higher education. And we've talked a little bit about the CalKids program throughout the day, but I want for the group to just give a broad overview of what it is. Essentially, there's been a lot of research over the last couple decades that have suggested that children with a modicum of savings designated in their name are more likely to continue saving on their own or attend higher education than children that didn't have savings whatsoever. The legislature recognized this, and back in 2019, for a little historical context, the state wanted to create a program that would give funding to every baby born in the state of California, regardless of their income. That was 2019. We all know what happens in 2020. We start masking up. And then in 2021, when the state had its incredible surplus, the governor loved this concept so much, primarily due to his work when he was mayor of the city of San Francisco, of creating a like program starting at kindergarten. And he wanted to expand this concept statewide. So CalKids formally launched in 2022 with 2 unique tracks. Every baby born in the state after July 1, 2022 automatically gets an account, and we put up to $175 in that. And then we also designated for low-income students $500. And how it works is we got this huge data set of 3.5 million children, all from 1st through 12th grade a few years ago, who have now since grown up and gone into college at this point. And we continue creating accounts for first graders in ongoing years. And so, today, while the program spans across all age ranges, it provides 2 unique functions. One, in the short term, that additional financial support for students at or near college age. And I was sharing with folks at De Anza College that students have already sent $125,000 to De Anza College specifically.
Wow.
And then building off of this research for younger families about building college-bound identities, how do we get them to start saving earlier? So the program is 3 years old now. We're branding it as the easiest scholarship in the state of California. And can I just ask by show of hands, how many of you know of any babies born in the last 3 years in California? You all know a baby that has had their first scholarship. And so, again, the program has created in total over 5 million accounts, and we appreciate all of your advocacy in helping families connect to this program.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, when I think about the cost and affordability, that's really 2 sides of the coin, right? When you think about cost, undeniably, costs of higher education have increased, and definitely outpaced inflation. So when we think about that, the cost, that's a reality. So I think what we have done, from institutions, from philanthropy, from other government sectors, and from employers, is to really make the affordability situation better, right? So when you think about financial aid programs, and we know there's limitation there on financial aid programs, I think it's really important to have this panel kind of together to talk about what's above and beyond the traditional financial aid program. I think CalKids is a really good one to really demonstrate kind of the power of just different ways of thinking to contribute into this affordability map, right? And I would also like to kind of introduce a dimension of time and risk. So when you think about time, and we all know, right, 4 years, even if it's little cost times 4 is more than little cost times 2. So when we think about how to make sure time to completion, we continue to stay true to that. And then think about, programs like CPL that really kind of give credit where it's due, so students don't have to go as long as they don't have to go longer than what's necessary to complete their credential is an incredibly important aspects of affordability. And then also we think about a lot, overwhelmingly Californians believe the value of higher education, and many of them also believe colleges are affordable, but they're not affordable now, right? So there's a lot of risks and barriers that people, especially those who have stopped out, are facing, right? That's really preventing them from turning that intention of going to actually going. So how do we kind of work together to address that is also incredibly important. And that also then speaks to the risk. I've seen actually a lot of innovations happening where there's somewhat of a shifting of some of the risk from students to institutions. Right, so I was at an earlier panel, I think CSU mentioned something of like a guarantee kind of graduation, right? Like basically is in a way to really support, because institutions are delivering good results, right? And they're able to kind of put money where the mouth is, right? To say, we know if you just come through the institution, you will receive the value the institution has promised you. So when people know there's more certainty to their success, they're more likely to invest, right? So there are like different dimensions of it. I think that has made the affordability space a much more interesting, I think, space for conversation. And given kind of all the uncertainty at the federal level, I think we need this level of innovation and conversation to kind of to have a path forward. So we're not just dwindling on how much money we're able to get next year, right, from the federal or the state.
How am I supposed to follow that? My goodness. Well, you all are the true believers here at the end of the day. So thank you for coming today. When I think about this question, I think about affordability. I also think about access, because those are two different things. You know, we think about California community colleges, and people say, "Well, is it expensive to attend those?" No, not really. When you look at it at the face value, under $50 a unit, that's affordable. The issue is how are these students and how are these potential students going to access the services getting here? We think of housing, childcare. We think of transportation. So really, the true cost of college, outside of the very low tuition, it's going to cost around 25, 30 grand a year just for the basic necessities that people need. And so, what I'm proud of, and what I love about working for California community colleges, is that we have been on the forefront of affordability and access for decades. Community colleges are really the central hub of social services for a lot of folks. As you all know, for those of you who are in education and in similar sectors, the littlest of roadblocks create the biggest justification for people to stop out. So how do we mitigate those kinds of things? How do we connect people in sustainable, meaningful ways that connect students to the things that they need to be successful? And we start thinking in those terms. You can have a shiny new program, you can get a shiny new funding stream, but how are we dedicating the kind of work that we're doing in implementing these programs, judiciously spending those funds to ensure that the students are receiving the help that they need? And one of the big indicators for affordability and access for me is what data is it that we're looking at? Because I have seen a lot of programs in my years where we just give money to fund some things, but there's no outcome that's measurable to help us refine and align what it is that we're doing to really do the work that we're here to do. And so I'm very grateful to be with all of you here because I enjoyed what you said. And some of you took my answer, so I had to improv a little bit, but that's all right.
Excellent. Thank you for that answer. I'm going to share some things, but I'm going to hold because I want to make sure we get onto the next item as well. The second question is, what are the local, regional, state, and federal college funding vehicles and programs that we should know about? And we start with whoever.
I'll start and go all the way back down. Yeah. All right, it's me again. So, when I think about this question, I think of what's the low-hanging fruit. One of the things that we see year in, year out is that students who are eligible for aid don't apply for it. The FAFSA, the CATA, for whatever reason, they don't know about it. They feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't apply for this, or they just don't know how to do that. And so one of the things that I urge everybody here and people who are working with students is to demystify that process and make sure that students are actually applying. One of the things I'm proud of, this past summer we had a summer bridge program. 100% as of today of our participating students have a completed financial aid application and are registered for the fall. That's really big. Now, one of the things, speaking about the California community colleges, and what I said before about them being really honed in on this for decades, we understand the true cost of college for the reasons that most of the panelists have already discussed. A lot of our funding streams, particularly from the state, our categorical funding, have built-in expenditure guidelines that allow us to give emergency aid and help to students for their textbooks, for their food, childcare. Specifically, basic needs funding, our student equity and achievement program, our AB 19 California Promise program. One of the things that I tell my counterparts in other colleges is to make sure that, yes, we can use this funding to pay for structural operational needs, but don't forget that the ethos of these funding streams is to give money to the students to help them. So what are you doing to get money in the pockets directly to the students to help them? One of the things I also wanted to talk about is student employment. So many students, if they work on campus, they're most likely to persist. That's just the fact. And so one of the things that we've done at our college, and particularly in my area, when I first started, we hired about 20 students. Now I hire almost close to 80 students. And one of them is here today, Lilith. They're all photographers. We met at an event. Lilith asked if there was any work on campus. I said, well, absolutely. Let's talk about it and we'll make it work. So I think those things are very important in learning how to navigate those, what they need to do to fund. Now, here, the last thing I'll say about this is you can have the best programs on campus that are designed to help students, but if you're not marketing them, engaging students, giving info sessions, inviting students to learn about what it is that we do, it's not going to achieve the results that you need. You have to spread the word that we're doing this. When we marketed like a student hiring program, we were really driving hard to the hoop to get students involved. I was hoping to get like 20 students. 200 students showed up to that. That tells you that there's a need for the students to work and to do the things they need to do. So anyways, thank you for your time.
And I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes to actually enforce it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I really love that. I think what's emphasized there, especially the last point around student employment, is really recognizing that students want to contribute, right? Like they want to contribute to the campus. They also want to contribute into their own learning, right? So when I think about at College Futures, we very much think about working adults as kind of our ground zero for a lot of transformation because there's a lot of opportunity there. People are driving for economic mobility. They want to access post-secondary education to do that. So, but then when we think about the current structure, right, EOPS program, for example, right, like with the full-time requirement, it's very difficult for students who have to work 20 hours. So just think about institutional programs. Yes, on one way, we need to increase uptake. On the other hand, is there something we can do at an institutional level to make it easier for students who can work so that they can afford, right, they can kind of contribute to part of the affordability pie to support their own learning. And then on top of that, I think outside of the public institutions, or actually even within, right, there's a lot of employer opportunities. The employers contribute, there's tax credit benefits for them to compensate some of their employees' learning. So I think CalKids, I'm sure Noah will talk more about it. So there are different elements, different actors can contribute into affordability. I think we can think about how to maximize all of these vehicles.
That was impressive. Thank you. Both content and also process. Thank you.
So does that mean I get to talk a little longer?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think Rebecca said it nicely though. We have an executive director that started a little less than a year ago who likes to think about CalKids in the sense of it's part of the building blocks of all these different financial vehicles that students and families can access for higher education. I'm going to try and touch on 4 points very quickly. The first, I acknowledge what CalKids is. It's a $2 billion investment in the state. I have to give appreciation to the legislature and administration this last budget cycle because one of the things that they put in state statute is that now school districts need to share with high school seniors information about CalKids as students complete the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application. And we think that that's going to go a very far way in helping students connect to their free resources. CalKids is also set up in a way that families can't actually put money in their account. But again, I come from the Scholarship Investment Board. We want to encourage families to continue saving on their own through the state's 529 college savings plan. And there's different ways that money can flow through those accounts. Families can get, we call it U-Gift. It's essentially crowdsourcing your education. Since CalKids launched in 2022, our goal has been to encourage more families to save through the state's 529 savings plan. And the number of new accounts that have been generated each year has grown exponentially. Quick anecdote, 35,000 new accounts would be annually each year before the pandemic. Since CalKids launched in 2022, we've hit over 50,000 new accounts every year, demonstrating more savings in the state of California. 2 very quick points additionally, CalKids stems off of work of local programs that have been done in the state of California. David got to work on a program in Oakland that helps babies and kids in kindergarten at the Oakland Unified School District. And there's a number of programs like that in the state of California, from MODOC to Glendale, City of Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, and CalKits builds off of that. And these are all different parts of the building blocks. The last thing I'll just quickly note is the state treasurer's office is working on a new program called HOPE. And HOPE is designed to give additional funds, upwards of almost $3,000, for children who lost their parents due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, all these resources exist, and we appreciate your work helping connect students to them.
Great. I mean, great points from everybody. I do have for FAFSA, I think that is a low-hanging fruit that students don't realize that's the gateway for a bunch of other work study, Pell Grant, institutional aid, merit, and need-based. So I really think encouraging them, demystifying it, teaching them financial literacy is so important. I think for undocumented students, we're definitely going to need to have some more care in telling them about the process and informing them that they can go to college and that there is money available, and that it is a secure process, just because I know that's in the federal landscape. That's a concern that students have. In my work is doing basic needs, a lot of students want to withdraw their CADA application, they want to withdraw their CalFresh benefits because they're scared of immigration enforcement. And so I think having those conversations is going to be difficult but important to meet students where they are and inform them of the resources available to them. I also encourage students, when I do meet with them, to really view the financial aid office as a partner in their academic journey to help them understand kind of their rights as a student, what loans are available, if there's emergency scholarships, payment plans, dependency overrides, because things happen. And so I really encourage students to be proactive in building that relationship with their financial aid office and really start building out a plan for them that is really accustomed to them and their needs, and their families' needs, because I'm seeing more and more students and their families. It's a family union to get an education, so definitely want to emphasize.
So I want to summarize for a moment. This question was about local, regional, state, and federal college funding vehicles that you all should know about. So a couple things that I heard here, and then I also want to encourage the group here. I'm going to ask you as well. One, at the local level, as Noah said, there are programs like Mayor Schaff helped to start in Oakland called the Oakland Promise. And we have Amanda Feinstein sighting over there, and Josie sighting, and other people as well who helped to start Brilliant Baby. Part of this idea is that at every single level, whether you're a baby, whether you're an elementary school student, whether you're a high school student or a college student, finance is important, and we need to make sure that we're touching them at every single level. So I actually want to ask, are there any people here who have local or regional promise programs that are in here or that are supporting them in any way? Anyone here? Any promise programs? All right, over there. Excellent. Over there. And can you just shout out your name?
Right. Dan Moser, the Eastside Education Foundation, the Smart Eastside Promise.
Thank you. Over here. And over here. Yep.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Josie. I'm from Oakland Promise.
Okay, awesome. So over here.
Oakland Promise.
Okay. Awesome. Over here.
Also with Eastside.
Okay, so want to name that so that we can be thinking about and talking to others in the room here. Regionally and statewide. So we heard about CalKids. Another particular initiative that I'm involved with is from California Volunteers. And this serves the 10,000 service members across California, AmeriCorps, College Corps, Climate Corps, and Youth Service Corps. But the one I want to focus on is College Corps. 3,000 students from 45 different universities across California, UCs, Cal State, as well as community colleges, are on the website. If you just go to collegecorps.com, or if you go to caservicecorps.com, you can see who they are. And at every one of those universities, they offer up to $10,000 that you can apply for if you do 10 hours of service per week for a year. And this is inclusive of populations like Alexis talked about, income level, documentation status, etc. So it's one resource that people can access. And then finally, at the federal level, I did hear obviously the FAFSA, and I wanted to also just highlight this idea of CPL, and thinking about how can we actually shorten the time period that people are in college to make sure that their finances can be able to go that way as well. The final question I'm going to ask our group, and sorry, any other nonprofits that are supporting in any way college students that are here, if you could raise your hands. Just call your name real quick, your organization name.
Foundation for College
Okay.
Degrees.
Awesome.
You were promising independence?
Okay.
Elevate to bring.
Yeah.
Students are learning about.
Just, yeah.
Public admin.
All you have is one goal. Yeah.
Each Filipino.
Awesome. The reason this is important too is many nonprofits are not often subject to some of the federal government type of things that some of our local institutions or statewide institutions are as well. So as we think about inclusive practices to serve all students, I think looking to those nonprofits and our foundation partners too. Could you raise your hand if you're a foundation partner? I'm not going to call on you, but just any foundation partners here as well? Any funding partners? Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and Trudy as well. So this is what we're talking about. The reason Northern California College Promise Coalition exists is simple. All of you all do all this great stuff, but we can't do it alone, and there's certain things that the person to the left of you can do that the person to the right of you can't. And so as we go forward, whether it's at the networking session that's happening after this or whatnot, think about who do you need to connect with so that you can serve your students in the way that we all want them to do, to be served. Last question here, then I'm going to take it from the audience. Combining questions 3 and 4. So I want to ask you I want to get specific now. What are the partnerships or opportunities that exist to collaborate this year to help as many California students as possible access the financial aid they qualify? And/or what is the one best and promising practice or strategy to support all California students in going to college and having a financial aid plan, basically? So what's the practical thing that people here should leave with? If like, oh, if I do that, my students that I'm serving are going to be able to access college in an easier way and affordably.
Great. David, you touched on a lot of the points, but for my call to action, it was like now is the time to collaborate and not work in silos. This is the really time to share resources, share best practices, advocate for policies, advocate for our students. If you want to go far, work together. As the inaugural Basic Needs Coordinator at Santa Clara University, I've partnered with the county, and that's been an amazing resource for our students to be able to streamline their CalFresh applications, their Medi-Cal applications. With the students' consent, I'm able to track their application if it's been denied, if so why, and really advocate on their behalf so they can focus on their studies, they can focus on their internships and such. And so I think this is a really good time to partner, again, with your local resources, your local nonprofits, connect, really meet students where they are, really take a pulse of what the students' needs are, and then go from there on how to best serve them and make sure they can have the most fulfilling experience when they are in their institution.
Thanks, Alexis. For Cal Kids, because it spans so many age groups, there are so many partners that we can work with, from financial aid directors at colleges, counselors who are helping students complete the FAFSA. We got to hear earlier this morning from Catalina Cifuentes, who's been awesome on bringing Cal Kids into the financial literacy initiatives. We work with Covered California, hospitals, county recorder offices that give out birth certificates. I think the one ask, though, that I have of you all leading this, while Cal Kids does have that newborn component, I don't want to negate that. I'm going to focus on the students here for a second. What students need in order to actually check their eligibility and claim their Cal Kids account is a 10-digit number that every public school student is assigned, called the statewide student identifier. And that number stays with them if they go from Sacramento City Unified School District to Glendale Unified City School District. That number stays with them. Most school districts, as we have learned, do not share the SSIDs widely. And since our program has launched, that has changed. And we need to continue that with the more than 1,000 school districts across the state. Additionally, just as our program's still in its infancy, having launched in 2022, we want to build on learnings around marketing, outreach, research to be more experimental. We're working on different projects now, integrating the program with social service providers,
financial literacy providers. I mentioned FAFSA completion, even working on vaccine incentives. But in order to do this, we need continued financial support to be innovative, whether that's from the private sector or our state legislature. So again, appreciate your time.
Okay, so from a philanthropic perspective, I can speak, on behalf of all the philanthropy, and obviously, and I think that needs to be kind of highlighted, right? All the philanthropic organizations have their own restrictions and their own kind of missions, so it's really important to kind of engage them. And my recommendation will be kind of engaging in a longer game conversation, right? Not just transactional kind of understanding. So they can be your thought partner and really lean into some of the, so for example, like some of the focusing or brokering powers of philanthropy to kind of bring convenings like this together, to have like minds together, to really think about what innovation will look like, right? For all of you to continue to do the hard work. And I will say for college futures, we very much think about adult learners being this population that we want to focus on around access and completion and attainment and economic mobility. And for example, FAFSA, we see a significant challenge with FAFSA uptake, right? In the community colleges, adult learners uptake is half of a younger population. So when you think about it, there is a pipeline there established for a more of a traditional college-going age, but then for adults, it's much more difficult to access it. So really thinking about how we support innovations in these areas, in addition to kind of counselors and basic needs coordinators who really use like elbow grease to do the work. Like, are there any other kind of design improvements, any technology that will benefit? So those are the areas. So for example, college futures, we're very interested in kind of innovations or proof points, and then also how do we kind of champion research to help, right, make your job easier, to inform, your direction of continuous improvement, and then support kind of leadership and the colleges engaging in kind of sustainable innovation.
When I think of partnerships, the one that comes to the top of the list is NCCPC, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a steering member. I'm not just saying that. I'm going to tell you why. Working at California Community College, particularly in my role, I get solicited at least 24 times a day to create a partnership with somebody. And I do facilitate dozens and dozens of partnerships every year, as long as they're meaningful, sustainable. When Mayor and I got connected, we were supposed to meet just for like a 15-minute meet and greet. And I said, well, what kind of resources can you offer our students? That's the first question I asked. We ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And I said, we need to be in partnership with one another. That, fast forward to today, we partner with NCCPC to provide career development and financial literacy courses over the summer for our summer bridge students. That has contributed to our 100% FAFSA and CATA application rate. We also are piloting a new program at San Jose High School where NCCPC and Mayor are going to be offering that same kind of curriculum to 200 dual enrollment students to help them connect what the coursework that they're taking to their academic pathway and then to their career pathway. And I think the younger we get folks on board, the better. The one promising practice I think that we need to do, and my colleague here mentioned, about 50% of folks filling out the FAFSA, is to try to, we're all the thought folks here, the change makers. Maybe we can figure something out. How do we move towards a universal completion policy for financial aid? In other words, can we work together to get all our high school seniors to fill out a FAFSA or CATA or another financial aid application before they graduate? I will tell you, community colleges, like many other organizations, we don't have unlimited funding and resources. We have to be very judicious on how we do it. And when we spend a lot of time trying to get our students connected to resources on campus, the first thing we always say is that you fill out your financial aid application. That, like my other colleague here said, unlocks all the other potential funding streams that students can take advantage of. And so moving towards that universal completion policy of trying to get all our high school seniors to complete this before. That means for those of you who do outreach and go to high schools, do application workshops? Are we doing financial aid workshops at the same time? I think this is something that's important. Another part of that story is not only trying to have the students fill out the financial aid, but making sure that we're involving their families, because they have to be a part of this, and that is also a roadblock in getting and unlocking funds for our students because their families aren't involved. They don't understand the process, and instead of taking the time to help and explain, in the rushed world that we live in, sometimes we, misinadvertently judge and don't help. And so we need to make sure that families come along for the ride. So I think if we do those two things over the next couple of years, we'll see an increase in folks receiving the aid that they need.
Okay, I want to see if there's any questions that you have. Was there anyone that, or was there any questions? So, I have a couple, but let's see if we can. Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to know we did talk about Cal label, and I think that as we're looking at the adult learners, that might be especially helpful. Could you maybe share how the does?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie, for bringing that up. ABLE is another important program. So I talked about 529 accounts for a moment, and every state, except for one actually, I'll let you guys switch, has their own version of a 529 account. But you can do any state's 529 account no matter where you live. We obviously want to encourage you to open a scholarship. It's just so the federal government created another program called 529A. And in California, we have branded that program CalAble. ABLE accounts are designed for people with disabilities. I'll share disclosure a second. I don't work for the ABLE program. But in short, I know that for people who make over a certain amount, they are not entitled to, or they have to lose certain public benefits. So the purpose of CalAble is to give them an opportunity to continue saving in a tax-advantaged way, that they could use their investments and earnings from that, not just for education, like 529s are restricted for, but for other living expenses. And this is especially important for people who are trying to continue to save, but also make sure that they can balance their savings with the reality of public benefit limitations. So if you know people who are considered disabled, I want you to encourage them to look into Cali.
Any other questions before we close? Yes?
Yes,
This will be our last one and then we'll close it.
the 529 plans, are they just for California or can they be transferred to some other college out of state?
For 529 plans generally, you can use funding in-state, out-of-state. Different states have their own requirements. Some states are prepaid plans, where you can only use the plans in their state. For California, we allow you to use the funds in-state, out-of-state, out of the country even. And for CalKids, it's similar rules where you can use the funds in-state, out-of-state, and not just traditional four-year college, community college as well, apprenticeship program, trade program, the whole gamut.
So as I close here, I wanted to actually just put out one final question to each of you as a kind of in summary. So one is, first I also just want to highlight that NCCPC creates, if you're like, I can't remember everything, like where do I get this or where do I get that? There are these toolkits that are incredible that NCCPC creates that help students, educators, funders, and policymakers better understand and get access to CalKids or CaliforniaColleges.edu or how to tackle scholarship displacement. I know when I was getting together with some of my former students, I went to this and I was like, oh my gosh, it's got like jobs, it's got scholarships, it's got all this stuff. So I want to really encourage you to go to the toolkit for NCCPC, and it's on the NCCPC website, that toolkit as well. So that's number one. Number two is that I also want to encourage people, if you do know of college students or people going to college, and they're at those 45 colleges, caservicescore.com, and then you could potentially get access to that up to $10,000 if you apply for those funds as well. And then finally, I want to highlight something that each of you said and then close. So one is, So as we think about this, and I'll take a little bit of a risk, but like part of what we want to do here at NCCPC is we realize that the status quo is not good enough. It's not working. So I want to just name a couple things that each of you said and just maybe just highlight a quick thing if you could with it. So one is that you talked about basic needs and you talked about the fact that the bottom line right now is the cost of college is too much and basic needs. So I would love for you, I'm going to ask each of you and then I'm going to pass the mic, to just say maybe one thing about like if you know a person that is struggling with basic needs, what should they do? So just to let the group know. Second, for you know, I always get really confused about who is actually eligible for Cal Kids. So I get it about the babies. If you're 3 years or younger, you got it, and anybody else. But in terms of the others, like someone graduated, if they're going to graduate next year or 10 years from now or 5 years back, what's an easy way for us to understand who actually is eligible and actually who will be eligible in terms of does this thing end or not, and if there's a deadline. And then with Rebecca, you talked about this idea of CPL, and I think it's a game changer. I don't think people really know what it is. So like, what is the thing that people can do so that they can actually graduate in a quicker period of time? How do they do that? What's the first step of that? And then Renee, you got me so excited. There's like 65 reasons why what you said probably can't work, but I've been wanting this to work for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. Why can't we have a universal FAFSA completion where everybody just completes it? Obviously, there's going to be some exceptions or whatnot. What is the way that we can do that? If we said as a unit, we want to make that happen, how do we do that?
Thank you. For my call to action for students, and I would encourage you all to tell your students, is to book an appointment with your financial aid advisor or with your counselor. I think you guys can demystify that for a lot of students. They think it's a really daunting thing to book that appointment. So I think encouraging them to give them the tools to then advocate for themselves when they do get to a four-year institution, to really just they can know how to advocate themselves and navigate these conversations to better advocate for themselves.
And that's around the amount of time I want each of you to have. So, yeah.
It's hard to answer this question in that amount of time, but really quickly, the eligibility is centered around the local control funding formula. So generally, we're talking about students who receive free meals through the National School Lunch Program, are part of social service programs like CalWORKs, CalFresh, Foster, homeless, English learner. In short, we added 3.5 million students who are in 1st through 12th grade in the 21-22 academic year. Let's do our mental math for a second. They're 5th graders through college seniors right now. And then in ongoing years, we continue adding 1st graders. The one point that I want you all taking away is over 60% of public California school students are eligible for this program. All they need to check their eligibility is that SSID I was talking about before. Go to our website. You can do it right now. You can plug in some random numbers, calkids.org. You'll see an eligibility tool. On that eligibility tool, when they plug in their 10-digit SSID, it'll instantaneously tell them if they're eligible or not eligible.
Impressive. Thanks.
All right, I'm also going to try to do this fast. So CPL is credit for prior learning, and currently it's, I think, piloted in every single community colleges in California. The idea of it is starting with the veterans, but the idea is many of the folks are coming into a college already have some level of knowledge, right? They need to have receive credit for it. So rather than coming in, assuming everyone coming in with a blank slate, not obtaining any required knowledge, it's really giving value for the lived experience and the learned experience of the individuals. So then that will satisfy many of the credit requirements, right, for those college-going students, so that they can complete college earlier. And then, so that obviously will shorten the time and the affordability conversation. And then another one, I'm going to also just put a teaser out. Many of you probably also know is competency-based education is another way of structuring classes so students can finish what they need to obtain in terms of knowledge in a shorter amount of time. Again, this both are kind of the cost-saving mechanisms, but through a different vehicle.
Close us out, my man.
All right, I'll do my best. And so, when it comes to universal completion policy, you're right. There's 1,000 ways that can go wrong. And so, what I would suggest is that folks start somewhere. For me, one of the programs I oversee is a dual enrollment program. And so, using those built relationships with the people that I know, I connect. Our outreach and recruitment program with our dual enrollment folks, the assistant principals, those kinds of things. And so we're actually going to be trying to start that this upcoming academic year when we host our application workshops for our high school students. We're also going to have financial aid applications workshops, and then also invite them and their parents to the campus. And so for me, in summary, is to start locally, figure out what the pain points are, reflect, improve, and then scale up. And so I think if you have enough people in the room, like the folks here, that can figure out ways in which to streamline and make this happen, I think in a few years we can have really something amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. Can we get a big rousing applause for all of our So in closing, before we have our official closeout, which you're not going to want to miss, by the way, I just wanted to actually direct yourself to the screen up here before. So as we think about what we're doing here, just remember the why we came here. So for me personally, in 2008, Jessica Ramos, who was there, was a student of mine. She later became a key leader in Oakland Promise, a key leader in the mayor's office, a key leader that met the Secretary of Education and is able to actually be able to be that change that we all want to be. So think about who that student is for you. And when we think about, can we make this happen? Think about your Jessica and how we must do that as we go forward. I also want to just recognize again NCCPC for the fact that they are actually addressing scholarship displacements, actually figuring out how do we enact the policy that they just helped to make happen. How do we leverage Cal Kids and FAFSA to make our students have more access? We have the tools, we have the knowledge here. Let's work together as we go forward. So thank you so much, and thank you again, Ken.